and Joe DeLeone on the horn, ready to talk about some exciting stuff, their careers in sports media, the approaching NFL, MLB seasons, and the effect the coronavirus has had on college sports. All that and more right here on the Captain Jack Show here today. Guys, pleasure having you on the show. Super happy that we could get this done and get you guys on the air. Joe, I'll start with you. How have you been, brother? What's going on in the world of Joe DeLeone?
I've been pretty good, just, dealing with the current issues of the climate in sports media, which is nobody's hiring because there's no sports going on right now. But there's always positives with whatever situation is going on, which the way that I'm looking at it, I have plenty of time to continually build my brand, continue to work hard and do all that stuff on the side that I typically probably wouldn't have if I was still a full season or in-season full-time athlete or working a full-time job.
Yes, we're all feeling those effects right now.
Yeah.
Sean, how about you, brother? How have you been?
This dude Joe does the biggest show out of all of us. I'm not tolerating that. Big Blue View is a great gig you got.
Eat it.
Oh, looking for work. Oh, I have 50,000 listeners a month. Oh boy.
It's actually more than that.
Look at you. See, that's what I'm saying. Looking for work. No, I'm going back to work this Wednesday in preparation for the MLB season starting up and all sports coming back. I'm a happy lad right now to be getting back to it.
Awesome. That's good to hear. And again, guys, thanks so much for coming on today. I guess we'll just start off and talk a little bit about where you guys came from, essentially. What inspired you both to become sports radio personalities, sports media personalities? Joe, we'll start with you first. What was it that made you say, this is something that I want to do for my career?
So when I was about a sophomore in high school, I got completely obsessed with the NFL draft. I'm still very much obsessed with the draft to the point where I realized this is something I want to do. I want to become a Matt Miller or a Mel Kiper, Todd McShay type. That's not exactly the trajectory that I followed, but I knew that I wanted to work in sports media. I wanted to be up front and center. My goals and my outlook has changed a little bit over the years, but I was always driven by that obsession with college football, the NFL, and the NFL draft. Now I'm actually producing and hosting a show with Believe that covers the NFL draft. I have a wonderful team of Ryan Roberts and Alex Gilstrap. We talk about draft prospects. We interview draft prospects. It's somewhat of a dream come true already. Even though I'm only 22, I'm already getting to get paid to talk about that stuff. But the general goal, the motivation has always been working towards becoming a draft analyst.
That's awesome. Sean, how about you? What was your moment, or when did you know that you wanted to do this for your life?
I went to college my freshman year thinking I wanted to be involved with, I always knew I wanted to be involved with sports after college. I went in trying to look into going into athletic administration, become an AD somewhere, high school, college, didn't matter to me at that moment. And then all through freshman year, I just kept on screaming at Joe about sports and all that. And then I just said, it was just so much fun getting a rise out of him, that I said that, this is what I want to do. There's a million Joe DeLeones around the country and around the world.
Excuse me.
I can just talk to about sports, not necessarily, but I can get the rise out of. And then it just blossomed from there. And then Joe said, "Hey, let's do a podcast together." And then since he said that, it's just become all I think about. So it obviously definitely a destination of sports, but to go into this form of media. Definitely spurred from actually Joe DeLeone himself.
Wow. Influential, Joe. You're influential.
Yes. Sean wouldn't be anything he is today without me is basically what he's trying to get at.
You mentioned the podcast, Sean. These two gentlemen are the hosts of Get to the Point, which has been running now for, 3 years? Has it been going for?
I think it's almost 3 years now.
Almost
we started sophomore year. Beginning of sophomore year. So yeah, we're almost at that 3 year mark.
That's awesome. You guys want to talk a little bit about that, kind of where you got inspired to do that podcast and where you can find the podcast?
So you can find it on any platform that has, podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify. It's all out there and on those available sites. You can go straight to our Twitter if you want to see any of our other content, and also find the links for new episodes. That is at GTTP Podcast. The creation of it, though, and Sean will can attest to this and agree this is kind of how it went. We were basically just two buffoons who noticed that they put in a recording studio in the Harrington School at the University of Rhode Island. And for whatever reason, that invoked the both of us to say a little bit more me say like, hey, let's go mess around in this recording room and see if we can do our own show. We walked in there thinking we were way better than we actually were, and that we were fully capable of understanding and figuring out how to do it. It was like it was a full year process of not only figuring out how to talk properly, but also how to not make the audio sound absolutely horrendous and terrible. So it was a learning process. It was just all about going in there, playing around, figuring it out, learning from our mistakes, because there were constant, endless mistakes.
Definitely. And Joe, that freshman year, he had been around during the Ben Kinch era at WRIU.
Yes.
I hopped on board, I think, the exit meeting. And that's when I started, finally getting serious about it. And I think we started the show that next semester in the fall, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, 2017 we started it up, and then double time that with WRU. We couldn't get enough of everything, but it was definitely tough because we also had practices and games and stuff like that. So it was definitely more of a grind than I think both of us anticipated it to be.
Well, yeah, you already have to spend so much time in college working on school, studying for exams, doing projects, this, that, and the other thing. How are you able to manage being a full-time student, being a full-time student athlete, playing for the football team, and still being able to do, projects like the Get to the Point podcast all at the same time?
It was just constant suffering. I think it's the best way to phrase it, because there were, Sean, you can 100% agree with me on this. There were times where we went in there and we had no energy. We were coming from like a spring practice after being up at 5 a.m, and we're just like, let's just bang this thing out. Let's try and get through it. Sean would be, why do you have that mentality? Why are you coming in here thinking this is a chore? A lot of arguing, bickering because we were grumpy. It was a little stressful at times. It was just finding ways to push ourselves. We knew that at times we weren't going to be perfect, but if you can find the energy to push yourself through that stuff, similar to when you're being an athlete, it just makes yourself all the more better. So when you're in that professional setting, you're used to those difficult conditions, and now nothing can really faze us.
Joe, actually, I think the worst instance was this last camp, or maybe the camp before that, when we were going up during football camp in August. After we would find breaks in between our two practices and go up there and skip our naps. Those were, I'd say, the true dog days of having to persevere. And
I believe we just lost them on Skype. I think our Skype just dropped. Apologize about that, folks. We'll get that fired up in no time. It's really a true grind that they were on. It's one thing and enough to work in and be a professional athlete, but also at the same time work and continue to do something and grow your own platform. I think that's a huge challenge that they would have to figure out, and we'll get some more on that. We're reconnecting to the call right now. Guys, okay. You got us again?
Sorry?
You guys got us again? We're
Yep.
You can hear us? Okay, perfect.
Yep.
We actually have both of you guys now on the camera, which is good as well. So let me switch this back over.
There we go.
Work the magic that is.
Hey Joe, what is that shirt? Can I see that shirt, please? Go ahead. Right. Throwing fire.
I won it at a camp
when
I was in high. Yeah, I won it at a camp when I was in high school.
You throwing fire?
Yeah. Just imagine a pudgy little Joe lining up.
Oh man,
Lining up the snap.
how many
What?
obscure long snapping T-shirts do you own?
I only own the one.
Only that one?
Yeah.
I'd like for you to start developing a collection.
There's not many. There's not many of them. Jack, are we reconnected or?
Yeah,
is it still...
you guys are good
okay.
to go now. I just wanted to make sure it looked nicey nice. That should
Okay.
be good. I'm not sure why Skype just decided to say, you know what, I'm done with this conversation. we were talking a lot, just about the balance. Did you guys have any final comments about balancing, podcasting while also being a student athlete?
Podcasting is not like doing a lift in between two practices, so we can put that out there. It's basically time management. It's all time management. It's if you can do it now, or else you're going to regret it later. And that's the stance that I think both Joe and I took up, especially when things are getting hectic. It's either play a game of Madden or do this and then play the Madden, because if you play one game, you're going to play two games, and then tomorrow you're going to be swamped and you're going to get crushed. And sometimes you have to learn that the hard way, which both of us have multiple times. So now I think we're becoming a little more efficient at the pre-prep. Joe definitely a little more intense on the prep than I am, but that's just two different styles.
Well, you don't disagree?
I disagree.
Who does all the show notes? Who sets up all the show notes?
All the show notes. You keep on throwing blanket statements at me. I'm gonna start getting a little upset.
Okay.
I used to call these guys, I don't know if I ever said it to your faces, but it's like you're an old married couple. You are.
Yeah.
You have those arguments.
I've heard that before.
The best of friends, but just the arguments are a joy to listen to as a third party.
The best quote that we had, Sean knows what I'm talking about. The best quote that we had in an article that was published on Your View. There's not many articles written about us. I think there were two. But in one of them, he quoted us in saying that during training camp, we would go to sit down in the dining hall and start eating, and people would come sit with us. And more often than not, people would get up and leave because they did not want to endure the shouting and arguing that would occur post-practice over the dumbest of topics.
That's incredible. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You guys did another really great thing at the start. The Harrington School of Communication and Media at the University of Rhode Island is a growing, living thing. Every year it continues to get better and better. And one of the great features now, especially for those who want to get into the sports media field, is the major program. You can actually major now in sports media and communication. And one of the things that kind of coincides and goes along with that is the Sports Media Club, the Anchor Sportsnet, in which you two both founded. Talk to me a little bit about, where you came up with the inspiration for that, how you went about doing it, and what that legacy is kind of led you on to.
So I always like to tell this story. The inspiration was Sean and I were sitting in interpersonal communications.
Small group comm,
which is probably one of the most useless classes I've taken at the University of Rhode Island. It was a nice class, but it didn't give me any skills that I really needed. But we were sitting there before class. One particular student was shouting about the PRSSA club at the University of Rhode Island very loudly. And I said to Sean, I texted him, why is this person yelling so much? And then I said to him, why is there if we're starting a sports media club, or if they're starting a sports media major, there should be a sports media club. There should be something that goes with it. And that immediately clicked in my head. And I said, Sean and I had just an instant connection of just working out the idea via text in the middle of this, the full class. We were brainstorming things along the lines of starting a podcasting network, a part of it, a blog where you can talk about anything you want, video content, all of that good stuff. The reason why I wanted to start this club is, and this is no knock on the journalism program, the communications program, or the cigar. It's just that at the University of Rhode Island, because the sports media program was so new, there weren't a lot of opportunities for kids to practice and do sports related stuff. There weren't podcasting opportunities. There were limited opportunities with the cigar because only so many people could write, and you had to focus on University of Rhode Island sports when you wanted to work. And while those opportunities are great, the inspiration for Sean and I was we should expand that. There should be more than just that. If there is a major dedicated to sports media, there should be a club that allows students to not just focus on URI stuff, but everything on a grand scheme of things. Because now, in this day and age, anybody can start a podcast, anybody can start writing for a blog, anyone can do anything, but you need a leg up on other people by starting it as soon as you can when you're a freshman or a sophomore to get that early experience with the technical side of things, the professional side of things, all of that stuff. That was the general idea. Find ways to branch out from what was already established at the University of Rhode Island.
Yeah, basically, we when we decided to when we had kids in there, we would teach them how to properly write, because at the time Joe would be writing for Big Blue View on SB Nation. I was writing with the Maryland Sports Blog back home, so we were starting to get some experience there. And then we've obviously both taken writing classes, and then we're taking audio classes and figuring this out. And then so we're teaching the kids how to properly record, how to make your audio sound good, because there are there are kids that were going in that recording studio, they're making music and it's still turning out pretty shoddy, and then we are trying to elevate at least the standard student to know how to record and then edit just a little bit to make you stand out, because a lot of these people out there that make podcasts, they can do it, they can talk for an hour, and then when it comes out, it sounds like it's been recorded in a trash can. And so these kids, they come in, they're bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. They don't know what to do. And now I think it's been really satisfying from both of us to take a coaching, almost parental role with these students and seeing how they develop. It's funny to say that, but we've seen kids that don't know how to do a thing, and now they're producing content weekly, and it's pretty good content, and it's just nice to see that. And then it's helping develop the future for sports media at the University of Rhode Island. And that's not going to transfer in 1 year. It's going to take a good amount of years. It's going to take a good amount of alumni resource and help like that, because the Newhouse School wasn't built in a day. It took years and years and years for stuff for that to be developed. And it's nice to be on the ground floor of that, and hopefully we can replicate some of that success further on.
Yeah, that was incredible. I mean, what you guys did and the dedication that you put into making sure that unit, that club went forward with progress. The contingency that I saw in my senior year of the following, the youth and all the freshmen that were sitting in there, bright-eyed, eager to learn, eager to get working. That takes a lot of work to generate that. So well done, both of you.
Thank
Jack, you. Are you excited for our new president at the helm
of the club? Who is it?
What? You don't know?
I probably do.
You know
Honestly,
this?
The group chat.
You better have Kev on. I don't know who you got in your lineup for the next few weeks, but you need to have Kev on.
I definitely will have Kevin on, because he is an incredible individual. URI tour guide. He's electric. He works his butt off.
Yes.
And you know what? I did know that he was going to be the next president. It's just keeping up with that group chat that we have is like, I have to dedicate 15 minutes of my day to sit down, because I can miss 170 messages at one point in time.
Half of it's just Cruz and Sully and Cardi arguing over the most odd semantic topic.
Best Godfather episode, go.
Why is Derek Jeter the most overrated athlete for the 18th time we've discussed it? Go.
He'll die on that hill.
So, guys, I guess we'll shift our conversation now into obviously the major sports and how everything's been affected because of the coronavirus. We continue to see that. The NFL just released that they are starting up camp the end of July 28th. I just want to get your initial thoughts. You guys are both heavy NFL dudes, former college football players. You know more about it than I do. When you see this pop up, that they're going to do it the 28th, the rookies and the injured players will be there before the quarterbacks and then full teams. Is it a worrying thing? Are you happy about it? What are your thoughts?
I think that it's still a hair rushed. I don't know if the plan is entirely developed to an extent where it's going to work smoothly. I think that one preseason game is a fair compromise because the players don't want to play any. They want to spend all this time preparing because they didn't have OTAs. They didn't have mini camp. They missed out on all of these things. So you really need that extended acclimation period. The gym that I train at, there's a few guys that in the group that I train with. One's on the Giants, a couple that are on the Jets, and they were talking about it today. And they're like, "Well, I'm supposed to report such and such date next week," and they still have no clue what's going on. I think that there is still a little bit of confusion. I think that they know what they want to do, but it's still not fully developed yet. There are going to be a ton of bumps. It's not going to start smoothly. There's going to be some issues, but that's just how things are working out during all this. Nothing is ever going to go perfectly during such an odd time.
It's a bit iffy for me. It still doesn't feel like it's real yet. When I saw the inter-squad, not even the inter-squad, the opposing exhibition scrimmages between MLB teams this past week, I'm like, oh, this is real. This is happening. And that's when that struck me that MLB is happening. It still hasn't fully struck me for the NBA yet, and it hasn't fully struck me for the NFL yet that it's really happening. And maybe that's some terrible pessimism, but I just need it to actually hit me for me to be all in, because right now it still feels up in the air.
Now, there's so many question marks. You're not going to know what actually happens. Are the players going to come in and all get diagnosed with the virus, or is this thing going to run as smooth as possibly can be? Obviously, that's not ever going to be the case, but I feel like there's just too many question marks, and maybe the NFL is in a good position because they have the other sports kind of preceding them and have already set up their plans. I haven't read too much into it, but I know there isn't a ton right now on testing, and I know the NFLPA is a little concerned about that. I'm not sure if the NFL, I think July 28th probably what we expected from them. They wanted to do it on time, but I think I'm in your guys' boat in that I feel like it's rushed.
Yeah, there's just not enough. There's not enough time at this moment to say guys are going to be able to report next week. I was listening to, I forget which radio show it was, and I believe it was Tom Pelissero who was the guest on the show, and he was talking about how this was last week, he had GMs and coaches texting him and saying, do you have any idea what's going on? Because we don't. And they were saying, we need to figure this out soon because there are a lot of steps to just straight up getting the building ready to house these guys and have them to come in. How are you going to work out spacing in the locker room? How are you going to work out plans if somebody gets sick? If you have your full quarterback, if someone in the quarterback room gets sick and all of your quarterbacks end up having it and you have to quarantine those guys, who the hell is supposed to start a quarterback during a game? There's just a lot of things that need to be worked out and a lot of precautions that need to be put in place to prevent a widespread outbreak for a full team. And you almost have to consider, if something like that happens, should there just be a circumstance where if enough guys on a team get sick, they should not have to forfeit, but the game should just not be played and it doesn't count towards anyone's record, because this is a very different sport than some others. It's not like baseball. They're not in the bubble like basketball. Guys are rubbing up against each other, sweating on each other, coughing on each other, breathing on each other, bleeding on each other. What's that face you're making there?
Can we say hitting, please? Because that's what happens at football, not rubbing up against.
It's hitting, but there's a lot of contact.
Please
a lot
use
of
some
gross
football vernacular. That's all I ask.
You know what?
You're a football player. Come on.
You know what? You want some football vernacular? Every time I went out for PAT and I snapped and got big and stuck my arms out, I had to find the nearest towel when I got to the sideline because I had offensive line and defensive lineman gunk all over my arms. That's just from one play, Sean. You're telling me that all those fluids are not being transferred from person to person? Oh, everyone interacts with everyone on the field at one point.
There's spit, there's snot, sweat. Joe said blood. I was long sleeved up by my senior year, just because I didn't. And not for that reason, but I maybe they should just be in long sleeves this year. It's pretty fashionable. I wouldn't mind that if everyone was just sleeved up.
That's not a bad idea.
Did you guys see the COVID mask that Oakley released? Essentially, it's going to be a shield below your eye shield.
The motorcycle helmet?
Yeah, no, it's a little different than that.
It's just a plastic shield, but there are holes in it. There are literal
Uh,
slits right in the shield.
I don't hate it. I understand why guys are going to be really uncomfortable wearing it, and there's guys that are going to be complaining about it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you need to protect guys, it's the best case scenario.
Right.
It's either that or do you wear a mask under the helmet? Like what are you going to
Mm-hmm.
do?
I'm trying to think of solutions right now, and I can't.
There's
I
no
cannot
easy
think of
way
one
around it.
genuine. I cannot imagine trying to play with a little plastic face around my face mask. Can you imagine the fogging?
Jack, did you play hockey? I forget.
No, I never played hockey, but I did
Okay.
play high school football. So I know, I
Okay.
mean, I tried an eye shield, preferred
Yeah.
without it. So I can imagine how difficult it will be when you have not only an eye shield, but a mouth shield in front of you as well to play in that helmet.
Yeah. Are you familiar with what people that play hockey refer to as the fishbowl helmet?
Yes, of course.
It's the clear visor helmet that is a completely clear cage. It almost makes me think of that. And my brother
Mhm.
wore one and he didn't wear it for very long. I just remember him saying, "I can't see a damn thing. This thing is uncomfortable. It gets fogged up really easy." There's a lot of problems that just come from the goofy fishbowl helmet that these guys wear. So I think it's going to be a bit similar.
Similar, yeah. One of the leagues, and we've seen this throughout college sports now, leagues left and right are saying we're not going to be participating with college sports in the fall. And the CAA and the Atlantic 10, the two conferences that the University of Rhode Island competes in, they have officially said fall sports are not going to happen this fall. Your guys' thoughts on that? You think it's the right decision? You think it's premature? What do you think?
I don't think it's premature, and I think that what some people aren't considering, this is not really. Sorry, did I cut you off, Sean? You're giving me a look like I did.
No. I was on the same page of you because when I was talking to Craig Haley today, I'm like, yeah, a lot of people are saying it's premature, but I'm like, okay, well, if I was going to camp, I'd be going to camp in 10 days.
Right.
So I'd like to know this now.
Yeah, and the reason why I also don't think, but that's a really good reason to bring up. The season's a lot closer than people want to consider. But the other thing too is it's not premature in saying, oh, we don't know what the what the COVID situation is going to be like and how fast it'll spread. This is not a standpoint of talking about the possibilities of spreading COVID from player to player. As blatant and as kind of crazy as this is to say, the schools don't care as much as you think about the players. I know Sean's kind of rolling his eyes a little bit. I know
I
it's a little
agree.
it's a little pessimistic, and I talked to some guys on various teams, and they're on the same page with me. The reality of it, this is financially based. Conferences that don't think that they can, with teams that don't think that they can afford to handle a season, and then the additional precautions to keep the players safe don't want to waste their time. If there's no one in the stands, you can't make money off of ticket sales. You don't have big TV contracts like the SEC and Big 12, so they don't make any money really from that. On top of that, it's harder to sell ads for the stadium if there's no one in the stands, so you're taking away ad revenue and sponsorships. And then the final thing that I think that isn't even being talked about at all that could very well be in the equation is the insurance companies that represent these universities. They are very well controlling more than people want to consider. They're definitely in conversations with saying, look, we don't want to have to pay to put a kid on a ventilator if you're going to go ahead and just do this season without our permission. So they're probably forcing the hand of the universities and the athletic departments in this situation. I don't know that for a fact, but insurance companies have more of an impact, I think, that people want to consider.
Is it on to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or did I just? Joe had such a great point there. Jack, I'm actually going to flip it back to you. What do you think? I'm going to let we're on here. Joe said everything that I've already said, and also my mic is now geeking out. So go ahead, Jack.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on football starting.
I brought this up last week when it was originally, the Ivy Leagues and the Patriot League said that they're not going to compete, and I said that it makes total sense for the smaller conferences. The Ivy League, they're bred on their academic success. Harvard's not getting pumped in a bunch of money because of how well they do in field hockey. Like that's just a part of their puzzle. I'm not surprised that the Ivy League and the Patriot League said we're not going to compete this fall. I'm probably not surprised that the Atlantic 10 said they're not going to compete in fall. I'm a little surprised that the CAA said that already. And I know that they pushed it to spring right now just to, essentially say we're going to have a season. I want to get your guys' take on that as well, how you feel about playing football in the spring, and if that makes a difference in any means. But I think for them, it's one of their biggest sports is to have football. So I wonder, and you guys have more of a experience in this. I just think it was a little strange how quickly it came. I think that they could have maybe pushed it back a little bit. They're still going to have practices and workouts for the teams. Mm-hmm. Maybe see how it goes. And Joe, I think you made a great point with the insurance companies and the universities just saying we don't want to deal with players getting sick. If we don't have to, let's push it back. It was more surprising than the other leagues saying that they weren't going to compete this way.
It's interesting. The CAA did cancel its season, but apparently in a Stats FCS article, James Madison still has the opportunity to pursue an independent schedule. So it is still team-to-team based if they want to book games, and they're going to have to book games that are close, and also they're going to have to book a good amount of FBS games. And I know Stony Brook already called it and said, hey, we're just shooting for spring 2021. And that's how I expect every domino to fall in all the conferences that have already fallen. I don't think we've reached the end of all the conferences that are falling. And I'd assume by the end of this week, as we get closer to when fall camp is supposed to start, out of pure speculation and seeing how the FBS has already started to follow some early FCS measures, that a couple more might happen to fall by Friday.
Yeah, that is, it's the uncertainty that we live in today's society. Is just what league, what team is just going to say no more. Of course, you guys saw that essentially the Canadian government said the Toronto Blue Jays can't even compete in Toronto this year. I mean, that is the extensive level that we're seeing due to the coronavirus. Guys, thanks so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it. Sorry about the technical difficulties early. Glad we got it figured out, and we got both of your beautiful faces on the camera and on the screen today. Where can everybody follow you? Where can they Get to the Point and your other broadcasting endeavors?
You can follow me at Joe DeLeone. That's spelled DELEONE. Also, go check out Get to the Point at GTTP Podcast, where we have our show. We have multiple shows a week, as well as YouTube channel where I scream and play Madden just for the fun of it. And also check out Big Blue View, the show that I do with them covering the New York Giants, as well as FCS football with Sean and the NFL draft. If you're looking for someone that has obnoxious takes about various things regarding football, make sure to give me a follow.
My Twitter is at Sanderson Radio. Sounds exactly how it is, or spelled exactly how it sounds. Maybe don't follow me. But as Joe already alluded to, you can find all the shows anywhere that you want to. And did we have our Twitch plug?
Yeah, I put you guys in the bottom of the channel right here on Captain America. So you can go to the bottom, and you guys haven't been live in quite some time. When are you streaming next?
It's a bit. Our schedule's been a bit complicated with trying to do some live shows, so we'll probably get back to doing that again soon.
Awesome. Well, let's Get to the Point Gaming, and we recommend that channel down below. We host you guys too. I set it up so that whenever you guys go live, this channel will host you.
I'll make sure I do the same. Awesome. Thank you, Jack.
How nice of you, Jack.
Of course. We gotta
work together.
Absolutely. Tag team it up. Guys, thanks again so much for being on the show. It was a lot of fun.